Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Full Throttle Finance, a financial literacy podcast that's geared towards dissecting complex financial topics into fun, relatable discussions. My name is Felicia, and I am your CEO at Cleanbee Consulting. And with me is Allison, who is our senior bookkeeper. Together, we focus on revving up the financial foundations for athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders in business. Regardless if you are operating from an established program already or if you are just getting started, we are here to help you make small shifts that drive better financial performance. So, before we actually get into everything today, I wanted to take a couple of moments to do a little bit of housekeeping and thank the Orange Cat Racing crew. My other half just got back from testing and he brought me back a hat that is signed freaking cool by all of the racers. So I just wanted to say thank you, Andrew, Brendan, Jason, and Michaela. I think that this was really, really rad of you guys. So thank you.
That is
um,
so incredibly nice of them. Like, this is literally why we are doing this podcast. We are literally fans of motorcycles and people and athletes. Like, so
yeah,
cool.
it is. All right, that's enough of housekeeping. So, Allison, what's on the docket for today's episode?
Yeah. So this week, we're actually going to shift back to talking about budgeting, finances, and cash flow management because these are both very complex topics that you're not going to get the first time around we talk about it. So we'll continue talking about some fundamental concepts surrounding the cash flows that can help you stay on track truly and financially. So, Felicia, let's start with the basics. Race teams and athletes receive and create their budgets at the beginning of the season, right? They are getting their sponsorship money too then. What kind of challenges could this create?
Yeah, getting all the money up front feels great. Sounds great. It's lovely. Gives you stability. But I think it actually, in some situations, might create a false sense of security. You might think to yourself, like, wow, I have plenty of money for the program this season. But in reality, this money does need to last you the entire race season. And in some cases, emergencies, things we didn't plan for that come up. And this means that you actually need to plan out how you're going to spend every single dollar if you want to last the entire season and make sure that you're showing up to the grid every single race. And, for a lot of people, the gut reaction to money in the bank is to spend it, especially if you're a preparer. Like, you want to make sure you have enough stock on hand and parts and backups and extras, and you want to make sure that you have enough staff that's out there at the track to make sure that you're not overwhelmed and that you're making it to every race on time with all the things you need. And I totally get it, right? But that in its own is exactly why you need to budget and why you need to have a plan and why you need to be thoughtful in how you choose to spend that money when it actually hits the bank.
Well, and that's such a good point. As a reference for our listeners on podcast 7, Budgets That Go the Distance, we talked about budgets and how multiple bank accounts for different expenses is super helpful. Think about creating an account for each large expense type that you regularly spend your money on, like parts, tires, fuel, travel. It's much easier to manage these expenses when you have the respective allocated funds separated. This ensures that you're not stealing money that should have been saved away for emergencies, for travel expenses because you didn't plan properly. If you haven't had the chance to listen to that episode yet, we highly recommend it as a supplemental resource to today's episode.
Episode 7.
Episode 7. So, Felicia, we talked about the peaks and valleys on financial reports and how preferably we like to see them flatlined expenses. But for a race team, that is generally not going to be the case because busy season, off season, not going to really be flatline.
Nope. Right, Allison. Racing is probably anything but steady. You definitely have peaks and valleys in your spending and in your revenues when you are operating a race team and a race program. But, and the reason behind those peaks and those valleys is that, like, you might have 2 or 3 events plus testing in 1 month, right? But maybe the following month you just have one single race. If you don't plan for those swings, those high activity months can drain your resources super fast because you just go, 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 go. That's where proactive budgeting comes into play. If you know in advance, let's say that June is heavy with races and heavy with travel, you can budget accordingly for that when you get all of your money up front at the beginning of the season. During your lighter months, set aside funds that are extras in your budget and try to replenish your reserves before your next surge. Maybe in July or August, you have another multi-race month on the schedule. You always want to be looking 1 or 2 months ahead of real time to make sure that you're staying on top of everything. That's the only way that you're going to ensure that you don't drain your budget too quickly. And on that note, right, regular reviews are key. Each month or even each week, if you're dealing with large sums or like how we handle our clients, we do all of their check-ins weekly. Sit down and compare the budget to what's actually been spent, what's actually cleared the bank as of this day, this week, this month. If you see a big jump, investigate it. It might be justified, like maybe an extra testing opportunity came up last minute and it wasn't on the original plan, so it wasn't in the original budget. Or maybe it's that big spike rate, maybe it's due to an impulse purchase. The key is asking, does this spike align with our overall goal, or is it a red flag that we need to address in our program right now? Getting ahead of the problem before it runs away from you is my biggest piece of advice for managing inconsistent data and inconsistent budgets. And to do that, you need real-time, accurate data analyzed and strategized often, plain and simple.
Yeah, definitely. And so, talking about red flags, can you talk us through the red flags teams might see if their spending doesn't match the plan?
Yep. So if, for example, you forecasted maybe a certain amount for travel, but maybe it ends up doubling in a heavy race month rate, that might be okay if you added an extra chip for that testing. Your performance gains are tangible and you can tie the benefit to those dollars. But if you see a big overage in travel expenses that don't really have any clear strategic ties or sporting a benefit, like that's a red flag. Was that travel necessary with the race budget in its current state? The point is not to panic over every single spike that you see or every odyssey that you see against your projected budget to real actual expenses, but every single spike needs to have rationale behind it. So you should be asking yourself, does this make sense for our goals? Does this help us out on the track? Is this necessary for us to go faster? If you can't answer yes with confidence to these questions, then that's probably a very good key indicator that you need to cut back on your expenses and that you maybe need to reallocate some funds in your budget. The constant check-ins, the constant realignments with your budget in relation to your actual spending is going to be key in managing your actual cash flow. So let's say that you needed an extra testing trip, but you ended up having a sponsor drop out during the last quarter of your race season. It might be too late to chase new sponsorship dollars that late in the season and in your program. So now you need to figure out where you have to cut expenses during the remainder of your season to make sure that you can still make it to every round because you're justifying that this extra testing is going to yield a tangible result out on the track to get you faster, to get you up on the podium. You might need to cut labor costs and look at running a lean crew, or you might need to borrow from your rainy day funds that you have saved away for an engine repair that might not have actually happened yet, but is very well still a possibility before the end of the season. But to make those decisions confidently and to not run your budget into the ground, you have to track everything in real time, analyze often, and realign strategy on the go.
So true, Felicia. Okay, so I wanted to shift gears and talk about some practical steps that someone can take away right now and apply to the program. So start by creating a detailed budget. You can use a spreadsheet or a budgeting template. Our Revving Up for Financial course has a downloadable budget tool ready for you to plug your information into. Make sure that you are having, at the very least, monthly snapshot meetings to go over your finances with your bookkeeper, or setting aside time to do it yourself. This allows you to check in that your actual spending is matching up with your budget. Give yourself cushion by looking months ahead, plan for repairs and travel, maybe even plan for your tax bill at the end of the year. One of the best practices is to tie each major expense to a clear objective: improving lap times, increasing reliability, enhancing logistics. If you can't articulate how a purchase or expenditure helps you compete better, it's probably not essential. By linking money spent to tangible performance metrics, you ensure you're investing in real progress rather than just convenience or nice to haves. These are all relatively straightforward tasks that you can take the reins on in your own program immediately. So, Felicia, can we connect the dots for our listeners? How does this all relate directly to better performance on the track?
So, when your finances are in order, one of the biggest ones is that there's less stress involved with whether or not you can afford that next set of tires, or whether or not you're going to have to skip an important testing session or even a race round. It gives the program peace of mind, and it lets the team focus on race strategy, vehicle setup, overall performance, the things that really matter. It gives your professionals that you've hired the space to do their jobs to the best of their abilities, and it makes sure that you have the right tools and that you have the right resources at hand for your race team. And a well-managed budget also means you can justify spending and investing money in areas that really move the needle for your program, like better data analysis equipment or hiring that extra crew member that you need to alleviate stress in your paddock. Rather than wasting resources on impulse buys or inefficient travel plans that result from poor planning and poor cash flow management, when you have all of your finances in order, when they are up to date in real time, really, like, you can operate better on the track. It's not your strength, probably. You probably don't want to deal with it anyways. So get it out of the way and get it handled so that you have that confidence to go and do the things that you really care about, that you really, really want to do. So, I think that that's actually a good wrapping point for today's episode of Full Throttle Finance. We really appreciate that you've tuned in and that you are taking steps to strengthen your financial foundations. If you found today's insights valuable, be sure to join us next week. And don't forget, our course, Revving Up for Financial Success, is available for purchase on our website. Literally, it has everything that you need to get started on budgeting and planning for a race season like a pro. You can always learn more about our course at cleanbeeconsulting.com/full throttle finance. That's CLEANBEE consulting.com/full throttle finance. And of course, if you are interested in working with us directly, you can still schedule a consultation for services. Be sure to subscribe and join us next week as we continue to break down finance with a motorsport twist. We'll see you next Friday.